is that recording? Yeah, really good. Okay, we'll just sit here. And if you look at, don't look at the camera. Look at me.
The pictures kind of.
Okay. Right, is that better? Is that all right? Okay, jolly good. First of all, can you just say your name and your position in the SNP?
I'm Dr. Cwr Pw. I'm the front bench health spokesperson for the SNP. I've been a doctor for over 30 years and I'm a breast cancer surgeon to trade.
So well versed in the NHS. The autumn statement and spending review was announced this afternoon. It's obviously very early days, I appreciate that. But do you have a first impression that you formed about what the Chancellor said this afternoon?
To be honest, having sat there, I found it quite difficult. The overwhelming impression is smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of false PR in advance so that they had the whole police announcement, everyone could cheer, but trying to actually nail down what he's giving that's new, what he's changing, actually takes quite a lot of analysis. So I don't have clear answers on the different bits. Obviously, one of our concerns, he's giving more money to the NHS, which is good. You see, the NHS in England is in a dire situation with 1.6 billion of debts. But as we try to combine health and social care, one of the problems is local government has had less money, social care needs are growing, and in actual fact this money could just leach out into social care without even doing the job that it's meant to do. And that's a lot of concern of people, that the extra money to the NHS is very specific to what he describes as core NHS. So things like Public Health England and so on are all not included in that. They're facing cuts, education. So a lot of it is money going in at the front, some of that money being taken out to the back end.
One of the things that he's announced is something he's called the social care precept, whereby he's saying to local authorities you can levy a local tax 2%. I mean, do you think that will really help? He also tended to suggest that local authorities had lots of reserves by talking about assets they'd sold. And do you think that's the sort of impression? Because it doesn't stack up with, for example, the Association of Directors of Social Services and what they've had to say about the real pressure on local authority finance.
I don't think that's true at all. I think, like the government itself, I think local government have been forced to sell the family silver just to make ends meet. We have local government areas that are looking at libraries, looking at school, looking at leisure centres, looking at everything, looking at care services and cutting everything back to the bone. I don't think they're doing that when they've got a big pot of money in their bank.
One of the impressions that, or certainly some analysts have given us as a first reaction, it's all about youth, getting children educated for the workplace, getting people into the workplace. And there is a sort of suggestion in this type of view that the elderly basically have worked all their lives in order to build up a pot of money which they then spend on their care. If that was the case, what would you feel about it?
Well, I think the whole issue of our older citizens and the pensions is actually kind of quite frightening. I mean, I was at a meeting recently where we saw analysis of some of the changes that are coming in. Now, I understand why changes brought in because annuities were so appalling and nobody ever did anything about them. But what we are being told now is obviously people are just free to do what they like. Now, there's already evidence that in the first year of this, people who are really hard-pressed in later life but pre-retirement are taking out a few thousand, taking out another few thousand, and yet have worked all that time to save a pot of money, to have a comfortable retirement, and actually they're in danger of not having much left by the time they retire. We also have people who are really eating into all their money in a very short period of time. And I feel that cynically some of this is actually encouraging people to go and spend. Go and blow it in a cruise, go and blow it on a big new car or whatever. That will make the economy look great, but in 5 or 10 years' time, when someone's pension pot's completely gone, they're going to be right down on hardcore state pension, which is not actually that comfortable a place to be. So while he talked about let's not have rises of 75p, he's talking about rises of £3 notes. That doesn't exactly change your lifestyle.
One of the points that he was making, or he seemed to be making, and he used it in the context of tax offices closing, about a greater emphasis online. Most people, when they're out in the street, will have noticed that more and more people have their heads in their phones, they're not looking where they're going. A sort of perhaps a trivial example of maybe one of the effects of online, of social media, of communication digitally, is that you become more isolated rather than more together as a community.
I would agree with that. I think social media and the connectivity across the world is a fantastic opportunity. But any parent of teenagers will know that there's a danger they're up in their room chatting to their friends instead of all in one room chatting to each other. And I think particularly for older people, while if they do access computer classes, if they do manage to Skype their kids and their grandkids, that can be beneficial. But if that's what they're reduced to, that is a pretty lonely life. I have this kind of feeling that if we actually put things like health and well-being as an overarching policy against which we measure everything, so physical and mental health, it would drive you in a very obvious direction. Be more person-centred, more communitarian, more to do with active transport, giving children a good start, but actually strengthening that community. If you were taking that into account in how you designed a town centre, you'd have wider pavements, you would keep cars out to the side so that people could come, that it would be a nice place to walk, you might bang into your neighbours, you might have a cup of tea with a friend. That's one of the benefits things like the free bus pass brings to older people. And while you get folk that bitch about it, in actual fact, keeping older people out of their houses, visiting a lunch club, travelling somewhere they've never been, keeps them active and keeps them well.
With your medical background before entering politics and the fact you represent the constituency in Scotland, many people say, Scotland's different. I mean, how different in principle is it, the basis of social care?
Well, I think the challenge is exactly the same. I get annoyed when people talk about the catastrophe of an older population. Having spent 33 years of my life really working very hard to help people live longer, just consider what the alternative is. It's living shorter. So the thing that is actually giving us the challenge is multi-morbidity. It's people not living healthily. So in actual fact, we need to make sure that at younger and middle age, and as people are approaching older age, they are active, they are healthy, and then they will collect fewer of these illnesses. But we have to look after the people we've already got. Now, obviously there's discussion here about integrating health and social care, and that absolutely has to be done, because I have seen elderly patients trapped in hospital because, well, they're safe in a bed, why should we provide them a care home or care at home? In Scotland, our integration boards have been running in for over a year and all went live. The last ones went live in April. So we're already moving down that line, and it is literally bringing the common services that look after elderly people together to work out how you blur those barriers. But we have real challenges because you have the NHS funding, which is also protected in Scotland, but we have local authority funding, which is really struggling. Also in social care, it's fractured into multiple private companies, some of whom are great, some of whom are awful. We have a workforce that are often very poorly paid and often quite badly treated. And what that means is that the patient gets a different person every day. If you've got dementia, continuity is crucial. So if you have someone who becomes part of your family coming in looking after you, then you will manage much longer, and your family will also be struggling a lot less, your carers.
So would it be fair to summarise just finally that you, whilst obviously you want to look in more detail at what's been announced today, that you perhaps start off from a pessimistic point of view?
Well, I'm slightly pessimistic in the sense that, one of the things we have in Scotland, which I think is great, is free personal care for those who require it. And that has been uplifted not that long ago to allow us to actually aim to keep people with a higher dependency at home in their own home. So they will have carers who are coming in and they are not paying for it. Because in actual fact, putting that care in to support their relatives or their neighbours or whoever else is helping them, and allowing someone to stay at home is much more cost effective. So that's one of the things. We were promised in their manifesto that they were going to bring in a cap to care costs here at around the 70,000+. Now that's been put away back till after 2020. So there are lots of people now who are thinking, well, am I going to have to sell my home? What am I going to have to do to pay for care costs? And I think that just creates a lot of fear in an older community. You know, we are, or ought to be, all in this together. And I think what's going on at the moment is a terrible politics of cover. Whether we are attacking immigrants, whether we're attacking poor, whether we're attacking disabled, or whether we're attacking older people, it's all a way of each of us blaming someone else, instead of actually saying to a government, you should be looking after everyone.
And of course now just a thought occurred that one of the things that he mentioned was buy-to-let and increasing stamp duty on buy-to-let. That of course cuts off a possible avenue for the elderly to have another form of investment in order to be able to fund a care home, for example.
But I mean, there's all sorts of things that are just not joined up. You know, we have a lack of social housing, so they're actually going to sell off what they've got. You know, yes, that's fine, they're going to build more housing, but that will take time. You know, when Mrs. Thatcher sold off the social housing, was what led us to just having no flexibility in the system at all. We've got rid of that in Scotland. And I think that the idea that if someone is having to sell their home to pay for their care costs, some part of their family who lives in that home may be put in difficulties. You know, I mean, that's just really awful. And I think that it's the fact that everything is very unjoined up. And as I say, listening to it today, a lot of it's little sound bites. And I think it'll take an awful lot of analysis before we really know where we are.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
So you'll chop that up.
Oh.